what I learned early on is that I needed to go experiential with these kids. These were kids that I couldn't give textbooks to, and I couldn't ask questions and test against the text. I had to create experience.
Welcome to the Web of Wellness, Reconnecting to Nature and Self, a series about coming home to ourselves through the natural world. I'm your WeBeTheChange host, Colleen Akiko, and today I'm speaking with Kari Hagel, a certified health and wellness coach, a Buddhist chaplain, a permaculturist, potter, and experiential educator. Kari has spent decades working with at-risk youth, with street kids and students that most teachers would shy away from. In this episode, Nature Deficit Disorder, the Hidden Epidemic, we hear Kari describe what she witnessed in her students' ability to focus and connect before, during, and after COVID. Kari began researching the nature deficit epidemic. She witnessed the healing power of sensory integration, being with nature and animals, and why teaching kids to work with worms might be more important than any textbook. Thanks for being here. I hope you'll also connect with us at Songrise.LIVE, Songrise.live for bonus content and your free eGuide, Out of Your Head into Your Light. I am so delighted to be here with Kari Hagel. Kari is a certified health and wellness coach who navigates from a deep sense of being part of a much larger web of life, of being able to respond to the intense needs of our day. So I want to tell you what is in Kari's personal web a little bit. She is exploring in a very hands-on way the topic of nature deficit disorder, particularly in students, and this is from her own hands-on experience as an educator. She is a champion of growth mindset, and she's also an amazing artisan. I drink from a coffee cup that she made as a potter almost every morning. I love it. She just has always been, as long as I've known her, which has been many years, a deep observer of the natural worlds of nature. She has worked, and continues to work with diverse cultures and value systems. Kari has a lot in her background that helps her be more of what she is. She's recovered from toxic chemical exposure and has done deep research in what can be most helpful with that. She's a Buddhist chaplain and can connect as deeply as anybody wishes to connect. Kari has been an amazing experiential-based teacher of the students that a lot of teachers shy away from. She's with them as a person, as a friend. I also want to say that during Standing Rock, you were the head gardener for the Institute of American Indian Arts. You have a depth of experience that is very unique, and you have worked so hard to gain that. So I want to put it out there that if someone is looking to connect with an expert with real life experience in these areas that we're going to be discussing, that it's not what you do, it is who you are. I'm so grateful for the brightness and the compassion that you bring into these areas. I know there's more, but we'll start with that. Let's start with what I know you are really passionate about these days, the nature deficit disorder, rampant in our culture. Can you help us understand what is nature deficit disorder, and how can we tell if this is something that we're experiencing ourselves?
Yes. I think it started emerging as a research field by a man named E.O. Wilson, who coined the term biophilia. And biophilia means connection with the planet, connection with nature is part of who humans are, to be the fullest beings that we are. We're not separated from nature. We are a part of nature. And if we can embody that and integrate that as a part of who we are, it optimizes our intelligence and our capacity as humans. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And when I came down here after I As you said, I worked with IAI as the gardener. And during Standing Rock, which was an eye-opener, I had worked with Native American populations before when I did my undergrad in biology in Flagstaff. And it was at a time when the students who were with me were the first generation of students who had not been put through the government boarding schools. So they were a lot of people who had been raised by their grandparents, and there was a deep hunger for reconnection with the value system of their communities, but also a deeper connection to their place on this planet. So that informed me when I went to IAA, and when I was doing the Buddhist chaplaincy, I helped develop what is called environmental chaplaincy. And I did that through working with street kids and homeless kids, creating gardens as a place where they could have a way to ground themselves and reconnect to themselves. I brought in some breath work and meditation kind of on the slide, but it was basically for them to help ground themselves in a time where there was a lot of disassociation and lack of safety. And then I brought that into the classroom, and I worked in schools that were charter schools, working with first a trade school where the kids were very experiential based.
Yeah.
And I was the science teacher. And
You're the only woman teacher?
I was the only woman. Yep. I was the only white woman.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was the only teacher, and I taught all the sciences. And so what I learned early on is that I needed to go experiential with these kids. These were kids that I couldn't give textbooks to, and I couldn't ask questions and test against the text. I had to create experience.
And let me ask you, what if you didn't take that approach? What would your classroom have been like if you took a traditional teaching approach?
Before that, the school had closed down the previous year, and they were restarting it back up again with new staff. And apparently the classrooms, particularly the more academic classrooms, had become very chaotic, and it basically spit the teacher out because they couldn't do anything. And the kids I worked with were survivors. I found out that some of the young people I worked with were the main support for their family. And for example, one of the kids I worked with came in late, like a few days a week, and I finally came up to him. He was a good student. And I said, "So what's going on here?" And he said, "Look, my mom leaves at 6:00 in the morning. My dad was taken away by the immigration agents, and I have 3 siblings I've got to take to 3 different schools before I come to class." And he said, "And after school, I start work at 4:00 and I work until 10:00 every day." And I said, okay. I said, "This is the deal. We communicate. If you get behind, I'll send you stuff on the internet. You pass your exams and come to me if something else happens." And this kid was not the exception. I had a number of different variations of that story. That was my first 2 years teaching. And
Wow.
But what I did is I learned how to teach science. And the deal I had with the kids was I said, "Okay, guys, this is it. I'll break the labs down. If you can go through the lab, understand what happened in the lab, write up a description to what happened in the lab. And when I talk to you one-on-one, you understand you didn't copy from your neighbor, then I'll pass you."
There you go. And what are the ages of the students, Kari?
Those were 9 through 12.
Grades 9 through 12. Okay.
So I developed botany in that class. I developed gardens in that class. We did a lot of hands-on. And with biology, as a science teacher, my background is a biologist, so I could integrate a lot of the natural worlds, the web of life, the interconnection of living systems with the kids. And they got it. They were in a trade school. They were learning how to be mechanics, and they actually got it.
Well, it's in our genes, and it's in their genes so much. That level of learning, the word that comes to my mind is holistic. It's learning with their whole being, not just with their brains. What a gift.
What a gift. Yeah. It was a gift. Then I taught at a middle school, Montessori school, and they were a farm-based school. They did farm work. They had 3 acres, 3 giant greenhouses, big fields, and 50 goats. And they actually had a little kitchen where they processed the veggies and they made goat cheese and goat milk, and they sold it at the farmer's market on Saturday.
Wow.
So the kids in middle school, half the day they worked with their hands on the land, and then the afternoon they did the academics. Those were the healthiest middle school kids I've ever met in my life as a community. There was about 50 of them. And I was really impressed. I was helping start a high school for the kids. So I was bridging the middle school and beginning to do the high school. So we would go back and forth to our high school setting. And the kids that I was working with had graduated out of that form of middle school. And then at the end of that, we hit COVID. And I taught at the high school, the local Santa Fe High School, online because they had the best online support system. And this is my puppy back here, Basho. And I got Basho right at the beginning of COVID. So he learned that. Anytime I turn on the computer, he goes and hangs out there so he can watch what's going on the screen. But I realized that I could get the kids to turn on the computers. This is usually a dead space during COVID. You didn't see many kids' faces. So we had Friday Animal Day, every other Friday. And so let's all turn on our computers and see who's in the room with you. So they would turn on their computers, the ones who had animals, and I would get to see their cats and their dogs, and I would get to see the kids beaming, and they were resourcing. They got that the animal in the room was actually good for them, and it was a resource for them, and they loved to show off that element of their life.
Oh, that's rich. I love that word that you used, resourcing. And I'm really intrigued by how you have connected students with this nature resourcing, this all things alive resourcing, including pets. That's wonderful. I mean, we do it as adults.
Yeah.
We need unconditional love. We get a puppy. And you just picked up literally a couple young kittens off the street who are there with you, keeping you up at all hours of the night.
Yeah.
I know they are
found me, those
right.
kittens.
They're resourcing from you. It is a two-way street as they get older. But resourcing in nature, even while having to teach online, witnessing the difference that life beyond technology makes in these students' lives. You saw it firsthand.
Yeah, I saw that firsthand. And then when I came back, when we started school up again, I worked at a small charter school with about 55% ELL students. And the head of the school was a gay woman. And so the school was known for being invitational to multiple genders. And in that school, I taught environmental science, biology, botany, and sustainability, health, and sex ed. So I was kind of right in the middle of all that.
Oh my, yeah.
And I taught 7 through 12. And what I noticed in that, which is what's of interest to me and why I've been doing this study, is that in our schools today, we have about average 15% neurodiversity. That means anything from mild auditory processing to full-on autism. And just some kind of sensory integration thing going on with the kids. Yeah. Also with an attention span, when I started teaching, maybe 5 minutes, which is why labs were really good because I could break it into sections.
Yeah.
But after COVID, what I noticed is like 85% of the kids are neurodiverse.
And how could you tell that had shifted so much? What did you witness in the
my
kids?
parameters were attention span, capacity to follow directions, ability to pay attention in the classroom and
Staying in their seat. Yeah.
staying in their seat. If I said, can you go get this? They could go get this. I'd say, what did you learn? They could tell me. So then I started thinking, okay, then what did this 15% do? Why are they the normal kids?
Quote normal.
And I started realizing that once I started getting to know the kids, and it takes a while, you get 165 kids, it takes a while to kind of get to know them.
I would think so.
And once I started talking to them, these were the kids who had gone out camping, had animals, had horse that they rode their bike, went out with dad in the garage and worked on the car, gardened, right? These were the kids who were actually physically interacting with their environment. And most of them had been outside. And one of them, for instance, one of the kids who was, quote, normal, I would bring my dog in to the classroom.
Mhm.
And the kids were all in rows, and he would walk around and look at the kids, and all the kids were like, okay, I'm really freaked out, Kari. No, it's okay. It's all right. Just let him smell you. Because some of them hadn't even interacted with dogs.
Mhm.
And he'd walk through the classroom, and then he'd come back and he'd sit in front of this kid, this one boy. And he did that 3 times. And he would just sit there by his feet and look at him, right?
Mm.
And as I got to know the kid, his mom was a rancher, and he had lived around animals his whole life. And in his family, he was part of triplets. And in his family, he was known as the animal whisperer.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, well, Basha picked it up. My dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Our
so,
Florida is like that too. Yeah.
yeah.
We take her into public places. Well, everywhere we go, we take her. And she inevitably finds a person who loves dogs. And I would never be able to tell, but she does. She picks them out, and they're just very natural together. She leans against them and wags her tail. And as you know, she doesn't do that with most people. Yeah.
So I was teaching these kids life science at the beginning, and I started taking them outside. This school, they had large gardens. It had a greenhouse. I got some grant money for building other greenhouses and getting garden equipment, and I had worms in the classrooms. So I started just bringing in nature into the classroom. Set up aquaponics and hydroponics, and I had worm bins, and I had grow tents, and they would go outside, and I would get the kids. And the kids who were, if you want to call it nature deficit, they'd stand there and they wouldn't know what to do even with the tools.
So what did you notice in the students?
I basically made nature available in the classroom for the kids.
Mm.
We had grow tents, we grew mushrooms, and I could talk about nutrient cycling. We had worms, we did worm experiments. I made up worm experiments so they understood worms and the value of worms. When we went outside, I had to train some of the kids, most of them, to actually use hand tools.
Mm.
I thought, there's a rake, can you go out there and rake that? Or here's a quarry knife, can you go dig that up? Basic things that I thought were normal vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have a clue what to do with.
Mm.
And so it was a process of every day bringing in basically nature to the classroom. And then when it got warmer, we would go outside. I also taught at that time high school sustainability, which was a dual credit. And I brought people in. We were doing land remediation. There was erosion from water. So we talked about how do you capture water and the importance of water. And then we laid stonework to prevent erosion. We had a drone that went around and mapped the property so the kids could see elevation and understand how the flow of energy moved through the property. And if we were going to garden, how do you support holding water on the land? This was the older kids.
That's so practical.
I know, it's so practical, and there are things that a lot of these kids will be able to use in their life, but particularly with the middle schoolers, because at the goat farm, I've seen kids who were really well integrated in their bodies and working with animals and land. And then I saw these kids after COVID, not really embodied, socially awkward, and there was a very short attention span.
Thanks for joining us to hear this recent part of Kari's extraordinary story. In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into her personal healing journey, from the toxic chemical exposure that left her bedridden to detox protocols that saved her life, and how she now helps people eliminate environmental triggers. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you'd like to reach out to Kari directly and or access free bonus content, just head over to the bottom of any page at Songrise.LIVE. That's SONGRISE.LIVE. This is Colleen Akiko. Join us for the next episode of The Web of Wellness, Reconnecting to Nature and Self with Kari Hagel. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and let's be the change together.